Hello everyone, happy Monday, welcome back and welcome to Teacher Appreciation Week. Appreciate your teachers. I don't know if you guys have ever seen him, but there's a guy on Facebook on videos called Gerry Brooks, and he's a principal and he's super hilarious and he's got great videos, and everyone always says, oh, why aren't you more like Gerry Brooks? So this is my attempt at Gerry Brookery. To be clear, this is a tribute to Gerry Brooks, and I think the guy is super funny, and I wish I was like him, but I am not near as funny. Everything that comes out of his mouth is witty and funny and insightful and smart, and that's not me. Okay, guys, here we go. It's time for teacher appreciation. We've got to do that teacher appreciation. Got to appreciate those teachers. First up is Mr. Gibson. Mr. Gibson, appreciate you. Appreciate you. Appreciate that beard. It brings comfort and warmth to all the staff. Mrs. Anderson, appreciate your potlucks. Appreciate the food you bring to the staff and all the fun gifts you always help coordinate. Appreciate you. Mr. Randleman, PE teacher, appreciate you. Appreciate how whenever something goes wrong, Mr. Randleman, he thinks everything's fine. Mr. Randleman could have his knees cut off, and he'd be like, oh, that's fine, it's good, I'm great. I appreciate you, Mr. Randleman. Mrs. Gross, beautiful singing voice, Mrs. Gross. She is always happy and singing, and I am not always happy and singing, so thank you, Mrs. Gross, for your beautiful singing voice and how much sunshine you bring. I appreciate you. Mr. McClellan, I appreciate you. I appreciate how you're a real weirdo, and we get some enjoyment out of that in the staff room. But Mr. McClellan's also real good with the kids, and I really appreciate that. He's good with all the kids. Good job, Mr. McClellan. You're great. Mrs. Perez, you're a teacher that does not lie to me, and I appreciate that. Sometimes I'll say, hey, let's do this fun activity. Miss Perez will say, no, that's stupid. I appreciate that. Thank you, Miss Perez. Mr. Van is my principal intern, and he does anything I ask him to, so I really appreciate that. I appreciate you, Mr. Van. Mrs. Greisen is our counselor. She's our counselor, and sometimes we've got kids that are crying a lot, and they're crying and they want their mommies and stuff, and I don't deal with that very well. Miss Greisen always deals with that. Thank you, Miss Greisen. I appreciate that. And Mr. Lednam. Mr. Lednam's the dean of students, and he does PBIS, and I appreciate that because there's a lot of kids who want like lots of attention. So when we've got like 17 kids who all need attention, I'm really thankful for Mr. Lednam then. I appreciate. Miss Hastings. Miss Hastings, our first grade teacher, and oh my goodness, all the times that I have to do like scheduling or signing people up for trainings, and I'm like, I don't know what to do here. Miss Hastings always just does it for me because she's so good. Thank you, Mrs. Hastings. I appreciate you. Mrs. Van, that's Mr. Van's wife, Mrs. Van, I appreciate you. You go to great lengths to help our students. Like that one time that we had a lockdown and you allowed a student to go to the bathroom in a bucket. That's going great lengths for our students, and I appreciate you. Mrs. Clayton. Mrs. Clayton is so smart about like colors and stuff. Like she knows that Pinterest. She knows the Pinterest stuff. And she always tells me when I put something on the walls and it looks like doo-doo. She's like really smart about that stuff. Thank you, Mrs. Clayton. I appreciate you. Mrs. Kavanaugh. When I see Mrs. Kavanaugh in the hallways, I think to myself, I don't hate her that much. When I see her, she doesn't make me sad. So thank you, Mrs. Kavanaugh. I appreciate you. I appreciate that you don't make me sad. Mrs. Ballard. Mrs. Ballard teaches third grade, and she's that teacher that when I have some weird idea about something where I'm like, hey, Mrs. Ballard, you want to make some terrariums for tree frogs and give them to all the kids? Mrs. Ballard's like, sure, I'll do it. I'll do whatever. She's not afraid to get her hands dirty. Thank you, Mrs. Ballard. I appreciate you. Mrs. Dugan. Mrs. Dugan likes to do room transformations, and she changes her room all up. Her and Mrs. Clayton, always changing their rooms into crazy stuff. And sometimes when I go into her room, I get blinded by twinkly disco lights, and I don't have a seizure. So thank you, Mrs. Dugan. I appreciate you. Mr. Fox is in 4th grade, and he is very patient with lots of crazy 4th graders with their 4th grade drama. They have always got boyfriends and girlfriends and all this stuff going on, and he's got kids hanging on his back and crazy stuff, and he's very patient with them. So thank you, Mr. Fox, for your patience. I appreciate you. Our students and our teachers and our principal is a little bit weird. We've got a little bit of a crazy school. And Miss Cook came to us this year brand new. And Miss Cook has not run away screaming yet from all the craziness and all the things I tell her. Hey, guess what, Miss Cook? You're going to have to dance in the cafeteria today. And Miss Cook is like, all right, I guess I'll do it. And she's okay with it. She's very cool. Thank you, Miss Cook, for being cool with our weirdness. I appreciate you. Then there's our 5th grade teachers, Miss Catlin and Miss Tostenson. You know those teachers that have been around for forever and they actually know a lot more than you do? That's those teachers. And they put up with me and my antics and don't call me an idiot. So I appreciate that. Miss Catlin just had a baby recently, and she doesn't have time for my silliness, but she puts up with me. Thank you, Miss Catlin. I appreciate you. And Miss Tostenson. Miss Tostenson does all of our data, and I don't even understand numbers. You know, when you go to principal school, they don't make you do numbers. I don't know why we have to do those numbers and the colors and the spreadsheets, and the spreadsheets have the different colors. I don't know how to do that. Miss Tostenson does that and doesn't call me that I'm an idiot. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Miss Tostenson and Miss Catlin. I appreciate you. And I appreciate everyone at our school, but this is Teacher Appreciation Week. So appreciate your teachers. Tell them thank you. Give them little cards. Tell them how much you are thankful that they taught you fractions and, adjectives and the schwa sound. Tell them that you're thankful because they have a really hard job. Thanks, teachers. Have a great week. Also, I'd like to make clear that I appreciate a lot more other things about these people. I appreciate everything about them, not just those little things, but those were just the funny things that I could think of that came to mind that wasn't real. I think they have lots of other things, and I really do love all my staff. And they are like family to me at this point, and I thank you for everything you do. Have a great day.